What if everything you've been taught about money is backwards? Since childhood, most people have heard the same advice. Save your money, protect your money, hold on to every dollar, play it safe. At first, it sounds intelligent, responsible, even wise. But what if the very habit that makes people feel financially secure is quietly preventing them from becoming wealthy? Because here's a truth that almost nobody talks about. Money itself does not create wealth. The deployment of money creates wealth. Think about it. A dollar sitting in a bank account is not building anything. It isn't creating opportunities. It isn't expanding your skills. It isn't increasing your influence. It isn't generating new value. It's simply sitting still. And in a world that rewards movement, standing still is often the most expensive decision you can make. This is where most people misunderstand the game. They believe wealth comes from accumulation. The wealthy understand that wealth comes from allocation. There is a massive difference. Anyone can accumulate money. Very few people know how to deploy it. The average person sees money as something to protect. The wealthy see money as something to command. Every dollar becomes a worker. Every dollar receives a mission. Every dollar is expected to return with reinforcements. This is why two people can earn the exact same income and end up living completely different lives 10 years later. One saves, the other deploys. One protects, the other positions. One focuses on preservation, the other focuses on expansion. And over time, the gap becomes enormous. Human nature makes this difficult to understand. Our brains evolved to avoid loss. Psychologists call this loss aversion. The pain of losing often feels stronger than the pleasure of gaining. As a result, people become obsessed with protecting what they already have. But the wealthy understand something uncomfortable. Money hidden from risk is often hidden from growth. Look at the people who build extraordinary wealth. Entrepreneurs, investors, business owners, creators. They don't simply earn money. They continuously redeploy it into skills, into assets, into relationships, into systems, into opportunities. Because they know that money is like water. When it flows intelligently, it creates life. When it stagnates, it slowly loses value. The greatest fortunes in history were not built by people who hoarded resources. They were built by people who directed resources. People who understood that capital is a tool, not a trophy, and that's where most people get trapped. They treat money like a symbol of safety. The wealthy treat money like a weapon of expansion, not recklessly, not emotionally, strategically. Every decision is designed to increase future capability. This is why wealthy people often make decisions that seem irrational to everyone else. They spend thousands on education. They invest in businesses before success is guaranteed. They pay for access to rooms, people, and opportunities. They use money to buy speed because they understand a principle that changes everything. The goal is not to own money. The goal is to make money produce more value than it consumes. The average person asks, "How much will this cost me?" The wealthy ask, "What will this create for me?" One question focuses on loss. The other focuses on leverage. And leverage is where wealth begins. Imagine two people with mot, hong, dollar. The first person protects it. The second person uses it to learn a skill that increases their earning ability. At first, the first person feels safer. But 5 years later, the second person may have multiplied that original investment dozens of times. Same money, different deployment, different future. This is why wealth is rarely determined by income. It is determined by direction. Where your money goes determines where your life goes. Every dollar is a vote for comfort or capability, a vote for consumption or creation, a vote for staying the same or becoming more valuable. And over time, those votes shape your future. The uncomfortable truth is that most people don't have a money problem. They have a deployment problem. They earn, they spend, they save, but they rarely position money where it can multiply. And because of that, they remain trapped in a cycle of effort without expansion. The wealthy break that cycle. They understand that money sitting still does not create power. Money deployed intelligently creates power. Because money is not wealth. Money is potential. Wealth is what happens when that potential is activated. The crowd believes money should be protected. The wealthy believe money should be directed. And that single difference changes everything. Because in the end, wealth is not created by the money you keep. It is created by the money you put to work. Money alone has never made anyone rich. Deployment does. What if the biggest obstacle between you and wealth isn't a lack of money? What if it isn't inflation, bad luck, a difficult economy, or even a lack of opportunity? What if the real obstacle is something far more invisible? Something that feels intelligent, responsible, even wise? Fear. More specifically, the fear of loss. Most people believe fear protects them, and in many situations, it does. Fear keeps you from touching a hot stove. Fear keeps you from walking into danger. Fear helps you survive, but there is a hidden problem. The instincts that help you survive are not always the instincts that help you prosper, and nowhere is this more obvious than in the way people think about money. From childhood, we're taught to avoid mistakes, avoid losses, avoid risk, play it safe, protect what you have. On the surface, this sounds like excellent advice, but over time, it creates something dangerous. A mindset where preservation becomes more important than growth. And when that happens, fear quietly becomes a prison. The middle class knows this feeling well. They work hard, save diligently, avoid unnecessary risks. And yet, many spend decades running in place financially. Not because they're lazy, not because they're unintelligent, but because they are trapped by a question they ask every day. What if I lose? That question seems harmless, but it changes everything. Because every opportunity begins to look like a threat. Every investment feels dangerous. Every business idea feels uncertain. Every major decision feels risky. And eventually, avoiding loss becomes more important than pursuing gain. Psychologists call this loss aversion. The tendency for humans to feel the pain of losing more intensely than the pleasure of winning. In fact, research suggests that losing $1 often hurts far more than gaining $1 feels good. Your brain is literally wired to prioritize protection over expansion. The problem is that wealth is rarely created through protection alone. Wealth requires movement, action, positioning, calculated risk. Growth demands uncertainty, and uncertainty makes fear uncomfortable. This creates a conflict inside almost every person. Part of you wants a better future. Another part wants absolute safety. Unfortunately, those two desires rarely coexist. The wealthy understand something the average person does not. Risk and danger are not the same thing. Danger is acting blindly. Risk is acting intelligently, despite uncertainty. Most people treat them as identical. The wealthy do not. This is why two people can encounter the same opportunity and make completely different decisions. One sees potential, the other sees danger. One asks, "What could this become?" The other asks, "What could go wrong?" And over time, those questions create completely different lives. Think about every major financial breakthrough you've ever heard about. Starting a business, investing in a skill, changing careers, buying an asset, moving to a better environment. None of these decisions came with guarantees. Every meaningful opportunity contains uncertainty. That's the price of admission. Yet fear convinces people that uncertainty itself is the problem. So they wait. They delay. They hesitate. And while they are waiting for certainty, someone else is moving. This is one of the most expensive mistakes in human nature, because certainty rarely arrives before success. It usually arrives after success. The wealthy know this. The powerful know this. The successful know this. They don't wait for fear to disappear. They act despite it, not recklessly, not emotionally, strategically. Because they understand that avoiding every loss creates a different kind of loss. The loss of opportunity, the loss of growth, the loss of time, the loss of potential. And those losses are often far more expensive than the losses they were trying to avoid. This is the hidden tragedy of fear. It feels protective, but over decades, it can become destructive. A person may spend years protecting their money while unknowingly sacrificing their future. protecting capital, protecting comfort, protecting certainty, until one day they realize they've protected themselves from the very opportunities that could have changed their lives. This is where power enters the conversation. Power is not the absence of fear. Power is the ability to make intelligent decisions despite fear. The average person asks, "How do I avoid losing?" The wealthy ask, "How do I position myself to win?" One mindset focuses on defense, the other focuses on expansion, and expansion is where wealth lives. The uncomfortable truth is that most people are not trapped by a lack of resources. They are trapped by a fear of uncertainty. They spend years waiting for guarantees that never come, waiting for perfect timing, waiting for complete confidence, waiting for zero risk. And while they wait, life keeps moving. Opportunities keep passing, and time keeps disappearing. The crowd believes safety creates wealth. The wealthy understand that intelligent risk creates wealth, because the greatest financial danger is not always losing money. Sometimes the greatest financial danger is spending your entire life trying not to lose it. Fear protects survival, but growth demands courage. And the people who build extraordinary lives eventually discover a truth that changes everything. The fear of loss is often far more expensive than the loss itself. Because money can be recovered, opportunities can sometimes return. But the years spent trapped inside fear are something no one ever gets back. What if the greatest threat to your future isn't failure? What if it isn't bad luck, a difficult economy, or a lack of talent? What if the thing quietly stealing your wealth, your ambition, and your potential is something that feels good? Something most people spend their entire lives chasing. Comfort. Most people believe that success and comfort belong together. Work hard, earn more money, create a comfortable life, and eventually everything will fall into place. But history tells a different story. The people who build extraordinary wealth, influence, and freedom rarely spend their lives pursuing comfort. They spend their lives pursuing growth. And growth has a strange habit of making people uncomfortable. This is the paradox most people never understand. Comfort feels safe, growth feels risky. Comfort feels rewarding, growth feels demanding. Comfort feels natural, growth feels unnatural. And because human beings are wired to avoid discomfort, most people unknowingly choose the path that keeps them exactly where they are. Your brain was not designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to keep you alive. For thousands of years, survival depended on conserving energy, avoiding unnecessary risks, seeking safety, seeking certainty, seeking immediate rewards. Those instincts helped your ancestors survive. But in the modern world, those same instincts often work against you, because wealth is rarely built through comfort. Wealth is built through expansion, learning new skills, taking calculated risks, building businesses, making investments, entering unfamiliar environments. Every meaningful breakthrough begins with uncertainty, and uncertainty creates discomfort. This is why comfort is so dangerous. It doesn't arrive looking like an enemy. It arrives disguised as a reward. A few extra hours of entertainment, another year staying in the same job, postponing a difficult decision, avoiding a challenging opportunity, waiting for the perfect time. Each choice feels harmless, even rational. But over time, these decisions accumulate, and that's where comfort becomes expensive, not because of what it costs you today, but because of what it prevents tomorrow. The average person thinks failure is the biggest risk. The wealthy think stagnation is. Failure teaches. Failure creates feedback. Failure builds experience. Comfort does none of those things. Comfort simply preserves the present. And while preserving the present feels safe, it often sacrifices the future. Imagine two people. The first spends every year trying to avoid mistakes. The second spends every year trying to increase capability. The first protects certainty. The second pursues growth. At the beginning, their lives look similar. But 10 years later, the gap becomes impossible to ignore. One has accumulated experience, skills, opportunities, and leverage. The other has accumulated familiarity. One expanded, the other remained comfortable. This is why some people become dramatically more successful than others, despite starting from similar circumstances. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is their relationship with discomfort. The wealthy understand that discomfort is often a signal that growth is nearby, a signal that expansion is possible, a signal that they're operating at the edge of their current identity. Most people interpret discomfort as a warning to retreat. The successful interpret discomfort as an invitation to advance. This is where power enters the conversation. Power is not control over other people. Power is control over your impulses. The ability to choose long-term gain over short-term relief, to endure temporary discomfort in exchange for future freedom. Because every meaningful form of wealth requires delayed gratification, and delayed gratification is impossible without discomfort. Think about almost every achievement people admire: building a company, creating financial independence, mastering a skill, developing influence, transforming your health. None of these journeys begin with comfort. They begin with sacrifice, effort, uncertainty, and persistence, the very experiences most people spend their lives trying to avoid. This is why comfort quietly destroys so many fortunes. Not because comfort is evil, but because comfort makes growth optional, and when growth becomes optional, most people choose convenience, day after day, year after year, until one day, they wake up and realize they traded possibility for predictability, potential for familiarity, freedom for comfort. The uncomfortable truth is that many people are not trapped by failure. They are trapped by convenience. Failure hurts, but comfort hypnotizes. Failure forces adaptation. Comfort encourages complacency. Failure creates resilience. Comfort creates dependency. And dependency is the enemy of freedom. The crowd asks, "How can I make life easier?" The wealthy ask, "How can I become stronger?" One question creates comfort. The other creates capability. And capability compounds. The people who build extraordinary lives eventually learn a lesson that most never do. Comfort is not the reward. Freedom is. And freedom is earned through growth, not comfort. The crowd spends their lives chasing comfort. The powerful use discomfort as a tool because they understand something that changes everything. Failure may slow your progress, but comfort can stop it entirely. And in the long run, the opportunities you never pursued will cost far more than the mistakes you ever made. Imagine two people with the same intelligence, the same work ethic, the same ambition, the same number of hours in a day. 10 years later, one has built wealth, influence, and opportunity. The other is still struggling to break through. What happened? Most people immediately assume the answer is talent, discipline, or luck. But often, the real answer is something far more powerful: access. Because in the modern world, access is a force multiplier, and force multipliers change everything. Most people are taught that success comes from working harder, learning more, improving their skills. And while those things matter, they are only part of the equation. The uncomfortable truth is that the right opportunity can create more progress in 1 year than 10 years of effort in the wrong environment. This is why some people seem to move through life at extraordinary speed. They gain access to better information, better mentors, better networks, better rooms, better opportunities. And every one of those advantages compounds. Human nature makes this difficult to see. We love stories about self-made success. We admire the image of a lone individual overcoming impossible odds. But behind almost every major success story lies an invisible network of access. Someone opened a door. Someone provided an introduction. Someone shared information others didn't have. Someone created an opportunity. Because success is rarely a solo achievement. It is often a proximity achievement. Who you are around determines what you see. What you see determines what you believe is possible, and what you believe is possible determines how you act. This is why environments are so powerful. Put an average person in a room filled with ambitious entrepreneurs, investors, and high performers. Over time, their standards begin to change. Their expectations begin to change. Their opportunities begin to change. Not because they suddenly became more talented, but because access changed their reality. The wealthy understand this deeply. That is why they invest heavily in relationships, communities, masterminds, conferences, mentorships, and strategic networks. To the average person, this can seem unnecessary. Why spend thousands of dollars for a room full of strangers? Because the wealthy are not paying for information. Information is everywhere. They are paying for proximity, and proximity creates leverage. One conversation can create a business partnership. One introduction can create a career opportunity. One relationship can save years of trial and error. The average person spends years collecting knowledge. The wealthy spend years increasing access, and access often wins. Think about the opportunities that changed your life. A job offer, a mentor, a recommendation, a friendship, a partnership. Chances are, many of them didn't come from a search engine. They came from people. This is why access is so powerful. It compresses time. It allows you to borrow experience instead of earning every lesson the hard way. It places you closer to opportunities before the rest of the world even sees them. And in a world where timing matters, proximity becomes an enormous advantage. This is where power enters the conversation. Most people think power comes from money, but often, money is simply a tool for gaining access. Access to information, access to talent, access to opportunities, access to decision makers, access to rooms where important decisions are made. Because the highest levels of success are rarely determined by what you know alone, they are determined by what you can reach. The average person asks, "What can I afford?" The strategic person asks, "What can this access unlock?" One question focuses on cost, the other focuses on opportunity. And opportunity is where fortunes are made. The uncomfortable truth is that many people spend years trying to improve themselves while remaining in environments that limit them. They read books about success, watch videos about success, dream about success, but they never place themselves near the people, ideas, and opportunities that create success. As a result, growth remains theoretical, potential remains unrealized, and opportunity remains invisible, because you cannot access what you cannot see. The wealthy understand this. That is why they don't simply invest in assets, they invest in access. They understand that the right room can change your trajectory faster than another year of working alone. That one relationship can create opportunities that effort alone never could. That proximity often creates possibilities that talent cannot. The crowd believes success comes from working harder. The powerful understand that success often comes from positioning better, because effort is important, but effort multiplied by access becomes something entirely different. It becomes leverage, and leverage changes the game. In the end, the people who move fastest are not always the smartest, not always the hardest working, not always the most talented. They are often the people who gained access to the right opportunities before everyone else. Because access expands vision, access expands opportunity, access expands power, and when access is combined with action, extraordinary results become possible. The crowd spends years asking how to work harder. The wealthy ask a different question. What room do I need to be in? Because sometimes, the biggest breakthrough in your life is not learning something new. It's gaining access to something that was hidden from you all along. Imagine waking up tomorrow with twice as much money in your bank account. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Now, imagine waking up tomorrow with twice as much time. An extra 12 hours every day, an extra decade added to your life, an extra year to build your dreams. Which would be more valuable? Most people never ask this question because they've been taught to think about money as the ultimate resource. Work for money, save money, protect money, chase money. But the wealthiest people in the world eventually discover a truth that changes everything. Money is not the real currency. Time is. Money is merely a tool used to buy, save, or multiply time. Think about it. Every dollar you've ever earned can be earned again. Every investment loss can potentially be recovered. Every business failure can be rebuilt. But not a single hour of your life can be reclaimed. Once time is spent, it disappears forever. And yet, most people spend their lives treating money as more valuable than time. They drive across town to save a few dollars, spend hours solving problems they could delegate, delay opportunities because they seem expensive. And in the process, they unknowingly trade the most valuable asset they possess for the least valuable one. Human nature explains why. Our brains are excellent at noticing immediate losses, but terrible at measuring invisible costs. If you lose $100, you feel it immediately. If you waste 100 hours, the loss feels abstract, silent, almost invisible. That is why so many people protect money while casually wasting years. The wealthy see the world differently. They understand that time is the foundation of all wealth. Every skill requires time. Every business requires time. Every relationship requires time. Every opportunity requires time. And because time is limited, the way you spend it determines the quality of your future. This is why successful people often make decisions that seem irrational to everyone else. They hire assistants, they outsource tasks, they pay for convenience, they invest in tools and systems, not because they are lazy, but because they understand leverage. The average person asks, "How much does this cost?" The wealthy ask, "How much time does this save?" One focuses on expense, the other focuses on opportunity. And opportunity is where fortunes are made. Imagine two people. One spends 10 years trying to save money on every decision. The other spends 10 years buying back their time whenever possible. Who do you think gains more skills, builds more relationships, creates more opportunities, launches more projects? The answer is obvious. Because time compounds. Every hour saved can be reinvested. Every hour reinvested can create future value. And future value compounds into freedom. This is why the wealthy are obsessed with speed. Not because they are impatient, but because they understand a principle most people never learn. A year saved today can be worth more than $1,000 earned tomorrow. The middle class often thinks wealth is measured by possessions. The wealthy understand wealth is measured by control. Control over your schedule, control over your priorities, control over your environment, control over your future. And all of that begins with control over your time. This is where power enters the conversation. Most people think power comes from money, but money is only powerful because it creates options. And options are really just time in disguise. The ability to leave a job, the ability to start a business, the ability to learn a new skill, the ability to move, the ability to wait for the right opportunity instead of accepting the first one available. These are all forms of time freedom. The uncomfortable truth is that many people spend decades earning money while sacrificing the very thing money was supposed to buy. Freedom. They work harder, earn more, accumulate more, yet somehow feel less in control of their lives. Because they never learned the difference between income and freedom. The wealthy understand that the goal was never money itself. Money is just a vehicle. The destination is control. And control begins with time. The crowd spends time to get money. The wealthy use money to reclaim time. The crowd measures wealth in dollars. The wealthy measure wealth in freedom. Because deep down, everyone is chasing the same thing. Not luxury, not status, not possessions, the ability to wake up and decide how to spend their life. That is the real purpose of wealth. And that is why time will always be more valuable than money. Money can return. Time never does. And the people who understand that early gain an advantage that compounds for the rest of their lives. Because the richest person in the room is not always the one with the most money. It is often the one with the most control over their time. What if everything you've been taught about money misses the point? Most people spend their lives believing that money is about buying things, a bigger house, a better car, luxury vacations, expensive clothes, a lifestyle that looks successful from the outside. And yet something strange keeps happening. Many people who achieve those things still feel trapped. They have more money than ever before, yet less freedom, more possessions, yet more obligations, more income, yet more pressure. Why? Because they confused wealth with consumption. And consumption was never the real purpose of money. The real purpose of money is control. Think about it. Why do people want money in the first place? Not because they love pieces of paper, not because they enjoy looking at numbers in a bank account. They want what money allows them to do. The ability to choose, the ability to refuse, the ability to walk away, the ability to wait, the ability to act when opportunity appears. At its highest level, money is not a resource. It is power over future decisions. And that changes everything. Human nature often tricks people into pursuing visible symbols of success, status, recognition, possessions, because those things create immediate social rewards. People notice them, admire them, envy them, but the wealthy eventually discover something far more valuable than admiration: control, because control creates freedom. And freedom is what most people are actually seeking. Imagine two individuals. The first earns a high income but depends on every paycheck. They cannot leave their job, cannot take time off, cannot withstand unexpected setbacks. From the outside, they appear successful, but they have very little control. The second person may earn less, yet they have investments, options, savings, multiple sources of income, the ability to choose how they spend their time. Who is truly wealthier? The answer has nothing to do with income. It has everything to do with control. This is the difference most people never learn. Money becomes valuable only when it reduces dependency. Dependency on employers, dependency on circumstances, dependency on approval, dependency on fear. The more dependent you are, the less control you possess. And the less control you possess, the more vulnerable your future becomes. This is why the wealthy think differently about money. The average person asks, "What can I buy?" The wealthy ask, "What can this allow me to control?" One mindset focuses on consumption, the other focuses on freedom, and freedom compounds. Because every dollar invested intelligently creates options. Every asset creates flexibility. Every source of passive income creates independence. Over time, money stops being something you earn. It becomes something that protects your ability to choose. This is where power enters the conversation. Most people think power means controlling others. But the highest form of power is controlling your own circumstances. Being able to say no, being able to leave, being able to wait, being able to make decisions based on opportunity rather than desperation. The wealthy understand that desperation destroys judgment. People trapped financially often accept opportunities they should reject, stay in situations they should leave, tolerate conditions they should challenge, not because they want to, because they have no options. And when you have no options, someone else controls your future. This is why money and power are connected, not because money guarantees happiness, but because money increases optionality, and optionality creates leverage. Imagine being offered an opportunity. One person must accept immediately because they need the money. The other can evaluate patiently because they already have security. Who has more power? The answer is obvious. Control comes from having choices, and choices come from financial strength. The uncomfortable truth is that most people spend decades pursuing money without understanding why they want it. They chase bigger salaries, bigger homes, bigger lifestyles, yet often become less free with every upgrade. More debt, more obligations, more pressure, more dependency, because they were pursuing appearance instead of control. The wealthy pursue something different. They pursue flexibility, independence, freedom of movement, freedom of decision, freedom of time, because they understand that the ultimate luxury is not a private jet. It is the ability to decide how your life unfolds. This is why real wealth is often invisible. You cannot always see it. It doesn't always wear expensive clothes. It doesn't always drive expensive cars. Sometimes real wealth looks like the ability to say, no. No to bad opportunities. No to toxic environments. No to desperation. No to pressure. Because the highest level of wealth is not having more. It is needing less permission. The crowd believes money buys status. The wealthy understand money buys options. The crowd chases appearance. The wealthy chase control. And over time, that difference creates completely different lives. Because in the end, money is not valuable because of what it can purchase. Money is valuable because of what it allows you to refuse. And the moment you understand that, you stop chasing wealth for comfort. You start building wealth for freedom, because the ultimate purpose of money was never luxury. It was control, and control is the foundation of a truly free life.